Hello, guys. Welcome to my channel. My name is Garrett, and today this is going to be part two in awakening into unity consciousness. So, in my last video, if you haven't watched that, you need to go back and watch that one first. So, I'll put a link down below. Go back and watch that one. I covered basically the refinement of perceptions, the shifts that I went through, Kundalini awakening, yeah, and some other stuff as well. The crown opening. So in today's video, I am going to cover the next phase leading up to my shift into unity consciousness, if I can remember correctly, because it's been so long now. So I spoke about the crown opening, two stages happening quite close together. The the descent of the sat energy that started coming in, it took me into Nirvikalpa Samadhi, Savakalpa Samadhi. I started to go through a process of absorption. My awareness been pulled into the absolute over and over and over again until eventually it got pulled out of creation into what's known as Brahman. And the next day, I had the experience of merging with the mind of God, the blue being, the blue pearl, but wasn't yet in unity consciousness. I had also experienced the full Kundalini awakening, but knew that there was still something further. And it's funny because you just know, you just have a sense that there's more. I need to do more. There's something else. And there's like a compass, there's something guiding you. You just seem to know, make the right moves, find the right people, go on the right retreats. So, so during this phase, there was a number of things happening. Definitely, there was more refinement of my perceptions. My level of consciousness was going up. I was continuously doing Shaktipat retreats. I don't know how many I did, but I did quite a few. And I was still benefiting from them. So even though I had had the full Kundalini awakening, me going and sitting for 3 days receiving Shaktipat was still clearing energetic knots in my system. It was deepening my meditation practice, enlivening consciousness. So for me, I didn't partake in any energy healing during my awakening. Pretty much very little. A little bit later on, I did some sessions with Elizabeth Rose, but for the most part, there was nothing. There was no real energy healing. I had done a number of different modalities. I had done some holotropic breath work. I did a 1 day workshop with that. I did a Native American sweat lodge that nearly killed me. I was engaging in daily ice baths, shaken practices. I would get into the ice bath for 6 minutes every morning, get out, and I would do shaking. Basically, stand there, shake every muscle in my body, it's just like, there was nothing was ever prescribed to me. It was just me piecing everything together, somehow knowing what was the next thing to do. I also got initiated into the Mahashadasi mantra and started reciting this mantra. This mantra was also very beneficial. It was a It was a Shakti mantra that was generating Shakti. So I was continuously saying this, doing Shaktipat retreats. And I think it was quite early on, maybe a couple of days after I was initiated into the Mahashadasi, I sat on my sofa, started to recite the mantra, and all of a sudden noticed that I was looking at a beautiful figure right in front of me. and it was Krishna, and he was sat in the full lotus position, stretching. He was doing this and doing this, and I was looking at him, and he had these big, beautiful eyes, and he was looking back at me. And then all of a sudden, I kind of realized, I was like, oh my God, it's Krishna. And I kind of got excited. And then all of a sudden, it was like as if something shot up above my head. Krishna disappeared. And I started to experience what looked like golden flakes coming raining down on top of me. And I don't know how long it lasted. I could feel them tipping off me as they were coming down, became really blissful. And there was a number of things similar to that. Gods and goddesses turning up. Sort of, I felt like they were kind of markers or signposts. Yeah, I don't know, like just they would turn up. I would see them, something would change in my consciousness. So I, I'm just trying to, yeah. So the next phase was somebody introduced me to the levels of consciousness. And there was a lady I knew, and she used to do it. And she measured my LOC and told me that I was at like 930 something, right? And LOC 1000 is a thousand. LOC 1000 is unity consciousness. So I didn't really know what to make of it. I went then and I did 3 sessions and woke up one morning thinking, is anything actually happening? Because, I mean, I had been doing Shaktipat retreats and the sat had been coming in, and these transmissions were phenomenally strong. And I didn't really feel a whole lot from this light transmission, a bit more quietness in the mind. So after my third transmission, I sat to meditate and I inquired. I was like, is anything really going on with these light transmissions? And I said, am I any closer to unity? What is unity? Can you show me? Right? And then all of a sudden, I was shown a coffee mug right in front of me, and all of a sudden, I knew that the coffee mug was a representation of the container of my consciousness. So somehow my consciousness was housed in a container, in something that was keeping it in. And then all of a sudden I noticed that behind the coffee mug was prison bars. And I was like, oh, and that's me being imprisoned. There's my container. My consciousness is there and I'm imprisoned. And then all of a sudden I noticed that the coffee mug was being tapped on the prison bars. And on the third tap, there was, it shattered, the mug shattered, and there was an explosion of white light in my mind. And it went out in all directions. And as soon as it happened, I went, oh, I knew what it was. I knew it was unity consciousness. So it went out in all directions. And I don't know, everything just went bright white. I was sat there. All I could see was white light, totally blinded by it. And then it imploded back in. So it went out in all directions. It was like as if it blew the container, the edges, blew them out, went out into all directions, almost like the four corners of the universe. And then it came back in and disappeared. Like it was like everything imploded back in. And what I felt was that that was the almost like the nucleus at the center. So it was like the subject object, the collapse of that. So it was like the con the walls of what I was, the center, everything went. So the center went, the walls went first, it went outwards, and then when it came back in, the nucleus disappeared or exploded or I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what the mechanism is and how it works, but that seemed to be what happened. And I sat there and everything just got quieter. It was just like this. sinking in, deepening, deepening, deepening. The mind just got quieter and quieter, deafening quietness. And I sat there and I was like, oh, I think I must have meditated afterwards for 2 hours in this. And eventually I think I had to go to work. So got up. So there was a shift. There was 100% a shift when that happened. I didn't really know what it was. I didn't really know, like I didn't have any framework really for what the shift into unity was. I never really read, I'd listened to Adi Ashanti talking about it in his When Fear Falls Away, but didn't really have a huge understanding of it or any expectations. So it just happened. And for the next 2 weeks, I could feel that there was something, a change. And after about 2 weeks, it normalized very, very fast. Even within 2 days, it actually started to normalize. And it was like, oh, did that even happen? So it was 100% unity. Over the next couple of days, I noticed that one of the biggest changes that I noticed was that I felt like I was now merging into my surroundings. So I always kind of had this feeling of, you know, home was where I went when, I wanted to retreat, when I wanted to feel safe, when I wanted to just be by myself. I always had this feeling of I want to go home and, close the door and there's my safe space. But now all of a sudden, it felt like that safe space was just me. I was the safe space. And no matter where I was, I felt like I was home. I could be sat on a bench in a city centre waiting for a bus, and it just everywhere felt like home. It felt like the edges of me had been erased, and my consciousness expanded out beyond me, the edges, and merged into everything I was perceiving. So over the next couple of weeks, it normalized very quick. I felt very at home, very normal, yeah, everything was just totally fine. Then, after about 2 or 3 weeks, I started to notice that the samadhi states that I had been experiencing, this shifting into samadhi, nirvikalpa samadhi, savakalpa samadhi, I just woke up one morning and I was constantly in that state of samadhi. So it wasn't a me sitting and meditating and getting into this state. Now I woke up and I was in samadhi 24/7. It never left. So this was what's known as Sahaja Samadhi. And I don't hear a lot of people speaking about it when they talk about the levels of consciousness. But this was something that happened for me very, very soon after my shift into unity consciousness. A little bit later, I was on another retreat. I was meditating and I experienced my awareness dropping from my head into my heart, and I witnessed a little protrusion on the top of my heart, and I noticed that there was some weird little being or entity that was almost like it was on a springboard or a trampoline, and it was like jumping up from my heart out through that little protrusion. And somehow I knew that that protrusion had been severed. There had been a conduit that went from my heart up into my consciousness or my awareness in my head, the intellect. And I knew that that little creature was my I thought. Looked like a little kind of raising its head up, almost like these whack-a-moles you would hit with a hammer. It was like poking up, dropping back down. And it was almost as if it was jumping, as if to go this is how I get up into the intellect, but the conduit had been severed and it was no longer there. It made a few attempts to jump, and then all of a sudden it fell back down into my heart and it dissolved. It was almost like I could feel it like disappearing. Now, I don't know, was that what happened in that moment, or was it showing me what had previously happened in my shift into unity consciousness or Sahaja Samadhi? But that was something that, and that was the sense of my I was no longer there. It was gone. And for the next while, I was noticing that, if there was anything offensive said to me, if there was, s- anything spoken that normally would have hurt me, I noticed that it was no longer hitting anything. And going back, having memories of being insulted, right? It was always felt like a dagger in the heart. It's like something really hit me there. And all of a sudden, it was now like as if the barn doors had been left open and it was just pass right through. And it was really strange, you know. It's like, oh, I don't take offense to anything anymore. I don't get offended. People's comments don't hurt me anymore. And that was the I thought. So there was an unfoldment after unity. Now, some people talk about unity consciousness taking, a year, 2 years to unfold and for refined perceptions. But it didn't happen that way for me. I literally was in unity for about 2 weeks and then shifted into Sahaja Samadhi. After Sahaja Samadhi, or with the Sahaja Samadhi shift, my eye disappeared. I don't know. I was shown the mechanism, but I don't know exactly when it happened. All I knew was that the Samadhi state was there 24/7, and now that solid sense of I-ness in my chest wasn't there. It wasn't jumping up. And what did that feel like? So every single thought that you have precedes I. So every time a thought forms in your intellect, it normally starts with I need this, I need that, this is for me, blah 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 blah. Everything revolves around me and mine and I. And when the I falls away, there's still thought, but there's no I. It's just not there anymore. It's just gone. So I think I'll leave that because the next shift then I experienced was Brahman consciousness, and I will probably start a brand new video for that. So if there's anything else you want me to cover, or yeah, anything you think I missed on the in the shift in unity consciousness, you can drop a comment down below. I read them all. I take inspiration for all of these talks from your comments. Okay. Oh, yeah, no, there was one other thing. There was the crown awakening in the third stage. So it was after Unity I experienced the full crown awakening. So again, sat down to meditate, felt the top of the head cracking again. So in the last video I spoke about the little coin size gap opening up, sliding off. A week later, the crack came down to the ears. It felt like there was a golden ball on the top of my head. Everything became gold in my meditation. It felt like there was honey, gold honey coming down around my eyes, around my ears, really blissful. A year later, it was a full year later, after the shift into unity, I experienced the cracking, full crown opening, and it felt to me like the lotus petals started to open up all the way down, and I could feel them coming down my neck, landing on my shoulders, and they went all the way around. And then it felt like the whole head was illuminated, connected to source. Yeah, so that was for me, that was like full unity. So full unity was the full Kundalini awakening, the crown chakra opening in the three stages. That took a year for me, and the subject object collapse. That's a real litmus test to check if you're in unity is, it feels like the edges have dissolved. The you that's here perceiving something outside of itself, that seems to collapse. And there's just experience. It's just experience. Um, there's some other phenomena that opens up after unity as well. You seem to be able to kind of feel into like energies, people's energies. You can kind of tap into people's moods. If you're sat on a bus, you might be able to pick up people's energies. I also started to be able to perceive entities and beings, and it was kind of relayed back to me in vibration through my body. So these are just some of the things. If you're going through the unity shift or you're getting close to it, everybody's different, but these are just some telltale signs and signposts that you can use to gauge your own. You can shift into unity without having the full Kundalini awakening. It just may take more time for it to unfold for you. For me, I had the full Kundalini awakening first, and that was a big help for me. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. Until the next time, we're going to talk about Brahman in the next one. Take care. Bye bye.